Hello, guys. Welcome back to the third and the last part of our bootcamp about data analytics, visualization, and storytelling. In the beginning of this bootcamp, we started exploring why do we need analytics? Why do we need to look at the data? And we start by mentioning this simple metaphor. And we say that in most of cases, when we come to the decision-making point of view, we start taking decisions based on our experience, based on our own gut, based on our logical point of view. And we have seen that lots of contradicting point of views might be logical. So I might have a logical point of view, which is completely opposite from your point of view, and both are logical. And we say that we build our logic based on the previous experience that we have seen in different situations. But the point is, whenever we are trying to take a decision, we need to consider the exact current case, the exact organization, this specific team at that specific time. And considering the actual situation is the good starting point for taking a correct decision. And if our opinions are reflecting what has done, if our previous opinion are reflecting the logical approach, we say that we can find the actual approach by looking at the data. Okay, perfect. So we say that we have to reflect on what is actually happening. We need to collect the data and use this data to take a decision. But we have found that taking a decision based on the data is an early stage. It's a huge jump. I cannot just look at the data and take the decision. I need, after collecting the data, to understand it first. And then, after I have understood the data, most likely that decision is not a sole decision. It's something that you need to discuss with other people. So you go to the third and the final stage, which is communicating the results. So we say that we collect the data, we analyze and understand, and finally we communicate the results. Luckily, visualization is a very powerful tool in both analyzing and understanding and communicating the results. And this is why we say whenever you are getting presented with a data set, whenever you're getting presented with a data sheet and access to a database, and you can see the data, it is not necessary that you start thinking directly about how the final dashboard should look like. It's about creating some hypothesis about the data. It's about defining what you are tracking. And we had an example about some HR data that we will be continuing working on today. And we are going to build a complete dashboard using this data, using Tableau. And we have mentioned why or how we should care about the visualization tools. And we said that visualization tools are very important. However, your understanding of the data and your comfort with the process is way more important than the skill with the tool. So the actual skill that you need to learn is the methodology, the way you start thinking about the data. And the methodology that we started building together was very simple. We say that whenever you are trying to create some insights from a data set, the first thing that you need to define is what are you tracking? What is your input? Sorry, what is the output? What are you tracking? And then you start considering the other parameters as inputs that are influencing that output. Once you start to identify this relationship, you will come up with some interesting relationships and some maybe nonsense relationships, you are going to ignore them. You might find some relationships that doesn't add much to the conversation, so you are going to ignore them as well. And finally, you are going only to focus on the relationships which are presenting the point of view that you would like to communicate. From that point, you have defined multiple charts. Each chart is going to deliver a certain message. And if you combine these charts together, so a statement next to a statement next to a statement, this is where you find a story. So your dashboard is going to be your story. And this is what we will be doing together today. Okay, perfect. So we are talking about visualization. And as we speak about visualization, there is um, a point of view, there is an idea about visualization that we need to keep in mind. In most of cases, when people start thinking about visualization, they might be thinking about coloring or putting the data in a beautiful way. And we say that it is not about putting the data in a beautiful way, it's about putting the data in a useful way. So I can drive inside or I can take a decision. In most of other cases, people misuse the importance of using colors, shapes, type of graph, fonts, titles. While you are trying to visualize, we have lots of tools. Do not only focus on the chart type. Yes, putting a pie chart is useful if you are trying to compare the percentage or the contribution or the assignment of a total sum to different departments. Pie chart is going to be a very good option. But if you are using pie chart, you can use pie chart with different grades of colors, or you can use pie chart with different colors. So you are using green, red, yellow, and something else. What I'm trying to say here is everything you are placing on your chart is going to contribute to the message. So if I'm showing you a pie chart with two different percentages, 75% and the 25%. And I have highlighted the 25% in red and the 75% in green. Does it give some message different than highlighting the 75% in red and highlighting the 25% in green? We are talking about the same exact chart, the same exact percentages. Imagine these two different charts. Would they provide different messages? Or you think it doesn't matter? Mm, yeah, that's right. Without giving any further details, if I'm showing you the 75% in green and the 25% in red, it means that this small portion, it might have, yes, exactly, something bad and something good. Yes, 100%. And this is why in lots of cases, you might find some people who are abusing colors. So for instance, I'm showing you the contribution. Yes, they are providing different perspectives, 100%. So sometimes when I'm showing you, for example, the comparison between the KPIs between two different employees, and one of them is achieving 80% and the other one is achieving 85%. And I have plotted both of them in front of you, and this is 80% and this is 85%, but I have highlighted the 85% one in green and the 80% in red. Both of them are achieving almost the same level of KPI, but highlighting one of them in green, especially the larger one, it's going to give you very bad indication about the other one. And it's not only about that level. If I'm highlighting the small bar in green and the large bar in red, it might be influencing a message or delivering a message to your audience that this big bar is indicating something bad because we have exceeded some limits, for example. if we are talking about CO2 emission, it's better to be low, not high. So if it is high with that percentage, it's going to be providing this kind of difference. We will be talking about lots of uh, cases where people can actually abuse the visuals or the visualization power to deliver misleading message, even with using the correct data. This is something that we will be discussing today, how you can uncover if someone is showing you a chart and they are trying to influence a certain message, but actually visualization to deliver an incorrect message while using the same exact data. We have some kind of tips or some techniques that people might be using for doing this. So it's very important to look at the data and start thinking what kind of visualization that's going to make this data useful. It's very important to utilize the power not only of the graph, but the power of the graph, the color, the sizes, the fonts, and the titles to be descriptive about your graph. One more thing I would like also to mention, which is while you are creating a visualization, it's very important to think about the first impression of your audience about this presentation. So when they look at your chart for the first time, they're definitely going to be a first insight, first message that you will be getting from them. In most of cases, you will find that people are trying to visualize everything. So if I'm showing you a table with, for example, let's say 5 columns, and there is one output column and 4 other columns, you would like to present on the dashboard everything about these 4 columns. So you will have this need or this motivation to display all the relationships on the visualization. And this is not correct. When we are trying to visualize the data, we don't have to visualize everything. We need to take some decisions. We need to take some summarization decisions. And that makes sense because visualization is about showing the fact that has been summarized from hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of numbers, and you are just summarizing everything in one chart so that your audience can understand what has happened or take a decision about what is going to happen or even expect what is happening. We are calling these 3: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. And this is something that we can explain in another boot camp when it comes to data science and machine learning. But anyways, you would like your audience to receive a certain message. So you don't have to display everything. You are going to display only the data which is contributing to your message target. So you need only to focus on that. Okay, so it's very important as well from time to time to start looking at different visuals. And there is actually a video that I would like to share with you right now. And this video is showing you the power of visualization and how you can use visualization to focus on certain type or certain portions of data, not necessary to display everything. Let me just share the screen time and make sure that the video is audible.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew. So, here we go. First, an axis for health, life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, income per person, 400, 4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe. And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind. Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics. Most people today live in the middle, but there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa. And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. We have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner. Well, what you have seen in the last few minutes is the story of 200 countries shown over 200 years and beyond. It involved plotting of 120,000 numbers. Pretty neat, huh?
What do you think, guys?
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Have you uh, captured the total amount of numbers? Yeah, it's very nice. Anyone remember the total number of digits used or the size of the data set used to plot this? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, and this is the main point. So making it or keeping it interesting and keeping it informative. It's very, yes. Yeah, that's right. Okay, perfect. You have been paying real attention. Yes, you could capture the number correctly. Yes. It was 120,000 different numbers. How many, and here, this is one of the very important takeaways from this video, which is how many numbers have you spotted on the graphs? Was there any numbers on the graphs? Yes, just the range, yes. Only the axes. And the axes, it wasn't linear. It was logarithmic, so 400, 4,000, 40,000. This is the first one. The second one, so it is not equal, it is multiplied. So the same distance between 400 and 4,000, it's equal to 4,000 to 40,000. So it is not equal spaces. Anyways, the first point I would like to make here is on that graph, we could build a visualization using 120,000 numbers without displaying a single number. And this is showing us very important fact, which is when people start looking at your visualization, most of time they are no longer interested in the actual data because some visuals I look at, and inside the visualization, you find that it's overloaded, lots of numbers and lots of details on the visualization. Yes, in some cases, this might be necessary, but that might be required for a certain kind of usage when you are sharing a report, for example, with your finance, and they would like to track the numbers. But in most of cases, if you are creating a visualization and you are delivering this visualization in order to deliver a certain message, in most of cases, people are interested in the result, not in the details. So do not be afraid of summarizing the details and not showing them. You need to make it very clear before you start thinking about how your dashboard should look like. You start thinking about how you are going to present or deliver a message. So there should be a message in your mind that you are trying to deliver. This is the first one. The second one, as you could see, the differences between the countries, it was at the end of the video, it was comparable. So these countries were actually close to each other. But as I have mentioned, on the wealth scale, it is not linear. So if you have 400, it should be 400, 500, 600, 700, up till 4,000, and then 4,001, 4,002, 4,003. So it's going to be a huge distance until you get to 40,000. But it was compressed using this logarithmic scale. So actually, what we have seen is giving you a certain message. However, while you are summarizing, and this is the nature of summarization, if I'm saying that there is a story that I'm going to summarize to you, it means that I'm not going to tell you all the details. So what details I'm going to drop, it's a very important question. Because while I'm dropping some details, maybe some of these details I'm dropping them intentionally in order to deliver a certain perspective about the message. And this is double-edged. This makes visualization double-edged weapon. It's very powerful. You can use to deliver and to convince the people in front of you with your point of view, and it's fantastic from that point of view. In the same time, you can use the same visualization power to deliver some, I don't want to say incorrect message because we are using valid data, but maybe I'm showing you something that a little bit incomplete. So, what makes a visualization a good visualization? We are going to agree on something that's called the convince principle. What does it mean and how we can follow the convince principle while we are building our dashboard? This is what we are going to see right now. So the word convince, it contains these terms. It starts with convey meaning, objectivity, necessity, visual honesty, imagining the audience, nimble, context, and encourage interaction. Now we are going to talk about every and each one of them. The first one is conveying a meaning. As we have mentioned in the beginning, every time you are displaying a chart in front of your audience, your chart should be highlighting a certain message. It should be highlighting a certain fact. If you are just putting the chart out there and there is no message is clear in your mind, there is nothing that you want to say, it doesn't mean that there is no message is going to be delivered. There is always a message going to be delivered. But the point is, if you are not using the power of visualization correctly, maybe the message that's going to be delivered to your audience is something that you didn't mean to say. So it's very important that you define the meaning, define the message that you would like to present, and then you start building the visual that deliver this message specifically. And here I would like to ask you about something. Let me show you this. I'm going to show you a simple graph, and you will be telling me what you think about it. Just a moment. Okay, so perfect. You know Titanic, of course, right? I mean the ship, not the movie. Yeah. Okay. So I'm showing you this. We have this pie chart and we have this pie chart. And this pie chart is showing us the amount of survived females versus survived males. So this is females and this is males. So I'm telling you that the percentage of females who has survived is larger than the percentage of males who has survived. What do you feel about this message? More females has survived more than males. What do you feel about this? Good, bad? It depends. Females should be happy and males shouldn't be. What I'm trying to say here is I might be showing you this, or I might be showing you something like this. And I'm showing you that these are males who has died, and these are females who has died. And I'm saying that. So the message that I'm trying to deliver here. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. They have more survival skills. Yeah. Yeah, they live longer. Okay, for lots of reasons. We are not going to talk about this right now. Okay, because it's a little bit tricky point. Anyways, so what I'm trying to say here is if I'm telling you that more males didn't survive than females. Actually, I'm delivering two different messages using the same exact data. But each one of these messages is going to have a different meaning. Each one is conveying a different meaning. Each one is influencing a different feeling to the consumer, to your audience. What I'm trying to say here is if I'm telling you that most of females has survived, it sounds like good news. But on the other hand, the opposite of this message is most of males has died. But what I'm going to show, what I'm going to highlight, it's very important. And this is why it's very important that you do not start by the visual. You do not convert the number into a visual. You do not plot and then start thinking, what is the output? What is the outcome of this chart? You do it in the other way, like what we have done yesterday. You start thinking about what you want to see. As we have said yesterday, for example, we would like to see the number of people who are leaving in certain department while being highly paid. So based on that description, you can define exactly what you are going to display. In the first place, while you are still investigating the data, you still not sure how this output should look like. But once you build it, now the message is going to be clear. And at that point of time, you decide whether you would like to include this message into your dashboard or not. And we have two reasons to think about. If I'm going to include my chart in the dashboard, it should have these two different factors. First, that the chart should have a clear message, a useful message. Secondly, this message should be aligned with the total story that I'm telling from the dashboard. And in most of cases, we see something like this. So someone is building a dashboard, for example, about the Titanic data set, and he is trying to show that the females had more survival skills, or as we can say, the females had more survival chance. And they would like to say that not only the females, but females at certain age groups, the females with family, so females with the children, and also females with um, a certain passenger class had better chance of surviving. So if this is the message, if this is the story that you would like to tell, you should be providing me with clear charts. When I look at the first one, I got the first part of the message, the second one showing another part, and so on and so forth. You find a coherent message, and then you find some chart showing you, for example, the distribution of the total number of passengers based on the port they have embarked from. This is, yes, this is delivering a message, but this message is not in a sync with the total story. It's not providing a statement. It's not providing a detail to this story. So even if the message is useful and it is not part of your major story, it might be a good idea not to include it. Why is that? Because whenever you are presenting a dashboard with 10 different charts to your audience. If you have 10 different charts in front of your audience, make sure that your audience are going to pay attention as 10% for each one of them. If they are 10 different tiles, if you are presenting five, each one is going to grab roughly 20% of their attention. So if you have one chart that is very important, that chart should be taking, for example, 50% of your dashboard size, and two other tiles, for example, are having two quarters. If you are presenting it this way, the attention of the user is going to be divided among the tiles as they're being displayed or according to their space. Adding more unnecessary chart into the dashboard, it's going to reduce the amount of attention that should be grabbed to the actual and the important charts. So this is very important thing whenever you are trying to build a chart. It's very important to ask yourself, what is the message that I would like to deliver? Because from the same data set, I can deliver different messages, and each message is going to serve a certain purpose. The second part of being or of following the convenience principle is being objective, objectivity. And objectivity, it means that being honest about the data. And now let me give you an example. Let's say that you are trying to build a chart, and for this chart, you are visualizing, for example, the performance. You are comparing the performance of your team with respect to the previous years. So you are including the performance of this year versus other past years in order to show the improvement. And you decided that you will be comparing the performance of your team with a previous time or a previous year, and you selected 2020, for example. So now you are comparing your current performance to 2020 performance. And it is not going to be a surprise if you found that you are making more progress this year versus 2020, because you have selected the Corona year, the year where you had COVID, according to or in order to compare your current progress. So even if your current progress is not very good, you decided to make that comparison to a weak year, potentially weak year, in order to show that there is a huge jump in the performance, which is not true. If we are highlighting the data, you will find that it is not relevant. Another example about being objective. When you look, for example, at the exchange rate, the money exchange rate, or if you're looking at, For example, the stock market. You might look up right now for the stock market, for example, for Nvidia or Tesla or Bitcoin. It's very popular nowadays. People are saying that, yeah, Bitcoin is dropping. The prices of Bitcoin is dropping. Yes, but it depends on the amount of data that you are considering. Maybe if you are considering 1 week, it's going to be dropping. But if you are considering 4 or 5 years, it's actually having a huge jump. So if you would like to convince, or I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about someone else. Someone else is trying to convince you to buy Bitcoins today while Bitcoins are being in a dropping scale, they are losing money or losing part of their value, they are not going to highlight the last month. For example, instead, they are going to talk to you about the people who has invested in Bitcoin for the past 5 years, and they are going to say that these guys have bought this amount of Bitcoins. They have invested, for example, $1,000. Now this $1,000 investment is worth $100,000 of investment. So objectivity is very important. Being objective, it means that you are going to select the correct amount of data that shows the actual data, that shows the actual result. And this is something that has been or is uh, being used very frequently, especially with uh, the large entities or governments when they are trying to show something. They might be having different messages if they are showing you, for example, uh, the total debt. And if the number is very large, so I'm going to show you something else, which is the total debt per citizen. So it's going to be divided from a number or a smaller number. Mm. Yes, yeah, this is right. The convenience principle remain the same while solving different business problems. Yes, they are generic. They are generic on every time you are trying to visualize something. Yeah, that's right. The third element is necessity. And by necessity means we shouldn't keep anything on the graph unless it is necessary. If it is not necessary, we shouldn't keep it, even if it has a value. And this is something we have just mentioned. If you have lots of messages to be delivered and all of them are useful, you need only to define or to include only the charts that are going to deliver messages that serves number one, which is the meaning. For example, if I'm building, let's look at the previous example, the video that we have watched. In the video that we have watched, the main meaning was the world is getting better. This is where we have highlighted the world is getting better. And I'm sure that we all have got this feeling. But for some point of time, or if someone would like to provide or to build a chart which is going to highlight on the differences between the countries. So, for example, someone is trying to build the visualization that is going to highlight the unfairness in the world, which is going to deliver a completely different message, which is going to leave a completely different impact on the audience. The first one is leaving very good and very positive impact on the audience. I can create another visual using the same exact data, which is going to leave a very bad impact on the audience. What I'm trying to say in here is necessity is not relevant to the importance of the data in general, because all the data and all the messages in general are useful. But the point about necessity is what data is important in this case, serving the main meaning of this dashboard. So adding one more unnecessary message to the dashboard, it is going to reduce the attention to the important charts. So if it is not serving the main purpose of the dashboard, it shouldn't be. The fourth one is about visual honesty. And we have mentioned something about visual honesty when we say that whenever you are creating a chart, it's very important to pay attention to the colors, to the sizes, to the scales. For example, if I'm showing you, and this is something that happens from time to time, I'm showing you two different bars, and one bar is from 0 to 75, and the other bar is from 0 to 70. So the difference between them is only 5%. If I'm showing you both of them on a full scale, so the scale from 0 to 100, you will be able to tell that the difference is not that large. But what if I am showing you this graph on a zoomed in scale? So I'm showing you the graph only between 60% or 65% to 100. You will find that this gap actually looks bigger. It's not bigger, but just I have zoomed on this difference. So visual honesty is about using the correct or the appropriate dimensions, using the correct or the useful colors, and using the same currencies. For example, I might be showing you two different graphs next to each others, and each one is showing the performance of one of the branches. So this is our branch in, for example, in UAE, and this is our branch in, for example, in Egypt. And I'm showing you the performance or the earnings in two different currencies. So you will find that one of them is way higher than the other. However, if you are unifying the currency, you will find that they are might be showing different meaning. But you didn't lie about the numbers, you didn't lie about the currency. It's right, but from a visual point of view, you have not been very honest. Then the I is for imagining the audience. It's very important to know where your dashboard is going to be presented. If I'm creating a dashboard that's going to be printed and distributed in a chart, in PDF files or as a report, the amount of details is going to be completely different than creating a dashboard that's going to be presented in a whole in front of 1,000 persons. So the amount of details and the clearance of the message is going to be completely different based on your audience. Also, you have to consider how much technical details this audience should be involved with. Should be, would they understand all the technical details behind the numbers and they want to see it? Okay, you can include it. Otherwise, including these details is going to be harmful or at least not useful. The N is for nimble. What does nimble mean? Have you heard this term before? Nimble. What does nimble mean? Okay, yeah, be adaptive. Okay, yeah, okay. We can say that nimble is simple, simply like this. Why didn't we use just the word simple to complete the convince? So it's going to be as convincing something with your chart. So yeah, you can just replace nimble with simple. Okay, so now you start asking, so simple is clear, but the point is, what is the difference between being simple or being nimble with necessity? In the necessity, we say that we should only include what is necessary. So we are going to remove everything that's not necessary, which is ending up being simple. But when you think about it, you will find that even if you are including only what is necessary, maybe you might end up with a complex dashboard. If this is the case, you need to revisit the dashboard one more time to keep it simple. Maybe you might be splitting it into multiple dashboards. Maybe you will be adding some filters. So your dashboard is going to be dynamically adaptive and it's going to show the results in different ways. So even while keeping everything necessarily only, you have to keep sure or to make sure that your graph by the end is still simple. And then we have context. Context is very important because imagine that you are presenting sales reports, and on these sales reports, you are showing bars with 70, 80, 85, 90 without any context. What does this chart mean? What are these numbers? It's not clear. And the bad thing here is some people think that if I'm showing you numbers on a graph and I'm not providing you with the context, and the context here, by this context, we mean the titles of the axes and the title of this chart. Some people think that if you are showing a similar chart, which is out of context to your audience are not going to understand what you're trying to say. And this is bad. But actually, what's going to happen is even worse because they are not only going to question what you mean or they won't get it. The worst thing is they are going to assume. So if they are going to stop you or ask you, you are missing the context here, we are not clear on that, it's very good attitude because eventually you will be able to deliver the correct message. But what's going to happen is different than this. What's going to happen is they are going to assume. So one of your audience is going to think that this bar is showing the sales in $1,000. Someone else is going to think that it might be in millions dollars. Someone else might think that it is in millions dirhams. So everyone is going to have different perspective. Someone else is going to think that this is the percentage of the target achieved from your sales team. So everyone is going to assume the context if you are not presenting it clearly. So it's very important to present the context clearly. The last point is encouraging the interaction. As we have mentioned, we are not just building a dashboard so that our data would look nice. It is not the main point. We are doing this so we can take decision. So from my perspective, I don't like, or I'm not a big fan with the charts that are not adding new information. If you are just providing me with um, a chart and telling me that, for example, in our company, we have more males than the females. Okay, that's fine. But what are you trying to say? What kind of decision that I should be making based on? If there is no decision to be made and it's something that we are okay with that, we are fine with it, or even the opposite, because I said it's a little bit tricky point. If we are saying that we have more females in um, our company than males, or we have equal, anyways, whenever you are trying to take it. When we say that, if there is nothing need to be taken based on this, if this is not contributing to the main message and it's not helping to take a decision. So now we are questioning if it is necessary to be there or not. Encouraging the interaction is very important. Showing a charts that are going to influence a message and provide ideas for your audience is very important. So the best use of a dashboard is a dashboard that is coherent. Each part, each tile is giving you a part of story, and by the end of this whole story, you let some impact on your customers or on your audience so they know what to do next. If you have built your dashboard this way, mean that you have built a really good dashboard and you can go with it. Is that clear? Do you have any questions so far? Everything is fine, all good? If you got any questions, please let me know. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so this is about the convince principle. Um, I believe right now we can have a short 15 minutes break. It's earlier than yesterday. So let's have 15 minutes break and then we get back. It's going to be actually 14 minutes break. Let's get back by 20 past something based on where are you in the world. So let's have this 14 minutes break and then we get back. Thank you so much. Enjoy your break. Okay, perfect. So let's head to Tableau. I'm going to open the sheet and we are going to think about how we can build a dashboard that actually tells a story. Okay, so here we go. This is what we have done so far till yesterday. As we have mentioned, if we are going to build a visualization using Tableau, we start with the data source, we load the data, and then from the sheet, we define what is going to be our measure, which is the thing that you are tracking, and what can be your um, uh, dimension, which is what you are actually splitting against. So till yesterday, we have used the left or the leave state as one of our measures, but actually you can think about it as a dimension as well. And I'm going to tell you how. For instance, if I'm going to count all the time the number of employees, imagine that you are delivering the message like this. Always you are counting the employees, but you are not counting the total number of employees. You are counting the employees based on one aspect. For instance, and this is something that we will be seeing for the first time with this data set, how many people has left and how many people has stayed. In the previous sheets, we have been focusing only on the people who has left, and we are looking at how they are being divided among some dimensions. So now we are looking at the total population of the employees, which is around 15,000, and we can divide them based on the leave state. Now things are getting more interesting. Now we know the people who has left, and this is around 3,500, and the rest of our population did not leave. So once you start thinking about the dashboard, as I mentioned, you need to first go through the analyze state, and we will say that we have already done this because we would like to go to the second part, which is creating the dashboard itself. In the beginning, when you are trying to visualize something, one of the very good ways of visualizing some percentage, you can visualize this percentage as pie chart. Now, as you can see, the pie chart looks like this. This color, which is the orange color, is the people. And on the right side here, we have the color. And if you would like to change the color, you can just double click on it and you can select a different color for it, for example. So we can just change the palette. For example, you can go to grayscale, you can go to the blue gradient. Lots of color schemas are there, so you can just select any of the existing color schemas and it's going to be changed accordingly. For example, I'm going to use the water one. So it's going to look like this. And you can apply the same color schema on everything else. You remember yesterday when we started dragging and dropping things into the rows, into the columns, you will find other things as well. So you will find something here called label. So if you would like to show the count on the label, you need just to drag and drop this to the label, and you will find that the labels are going to be displayed like this. And here we come to a point where some people start thinking, can I, instead of showing the numbers, can I show the percentage? Can I, instead of showing the numbers or the percentage outside, can I display it inside the chart? All these scans, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Generally, as long as you are asking a logical question, in 99% of cases, the answer is yes. So do not ask the question, can I do this? And convert this question to how this can be done. How can I make this kind of configuration? Because the tool actually is there to help you build this kind of visualization. One last thing I would like to mention about the coloring. Usually when we are using coloring, we are considering whenever you are using colors just to differentiate between things, and you are not intending to use colors as meaning, it's very it's much better to use neutral color schemas. So do not use the plain colors, which is the plain green or plain red. You can pick one color and start using the shades of this color. So for example, I'm going to tell my story as this. I'm going to say that in our company, we have good retention rate because most of the employees are staying and only a smaller portion as left. And then, which is the second part of my story, I would like to show you why people leave. So I'm going to display in this case the people who has left or the number of people who has left. I'm going to count the employees and I'm going to display them as the people who has left and the people who has stayed. But inside, I'm going to split each one of these graphs, each one of these tiles to a number of parameters or number of subcolumns based on their salary range. I can do it this way. So I'm going to split it further. And as we have mentioned, you need to keep this in mind whenever you are displaying something. You have one bar, always think about it this way. Once you introduce a dimension that has two different values, that one column is going to be split into two. If you are introducing another dimension which has three values, you will find that they are going to be six. These six parts, these six portions, are exactly the same heights of this graph. They are six portions as well, right? But instead of putting them next to each other, you are putting them on top of each other. They are exactly the same six numbers if you are doing it this way. But believe it or not, each and every one of them is going to produce a completely different message. Every one is going to show you a completely different aspect. So what you are seeing here is a good comparison between the people who has left based on the salary. So as you can see, we are using the strong color for the people who has left. So in here, this stronger blue is the people who has left. So here it is showing this way. Let me actually use a different, more clear color. Let me do this here. Okay, so this is the people who has left, the dark blue. Okay, now it is clear that the people who has left as maximum, the maximum amount of the people who has left has been the people who has been paying less. Let's display something else. Let's track how did the working number of hours has impacted the people leaving decision. One more time, I'm counting the number of users, the number of employees, and I'm splitting them based on the leaving state. But I would like to include also the number of hours per month. And here you will find huge amount of numbers. Why is that? Because the average monthly number is lots of data. So you have some people who has been working as 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. But the point is, are we actually concerned about all these details? In other words, we have a minimum which is 96 hours per month, and we have a maximum which is 300. So we have a huge amount of numbers. Are we concerned about all of them? When you think about it, you will find that no, actually, it doesn't matter much. There is no huge difference between someone who has worked 99 hours per month and someone else who has worked 100 hours per month. It's only 1 hour per month. This is where you can start dividing, and this is something that you can do directly inside Tableau by just clicking on this dimension that you would like to convert. And from this, you can create something else we call bins. So click on it, on this arrow, and then you go to create and you create bins. And for the bins, it's going to show you two different approaches. You can divide, it's showing you the minimum and the maximum. We have already seen this, but it's being displayed easily here. You have 96 as minimum and 300 as maximum. And you can select size of each bin. So you are going to create them into different groups. Each group is going to be 10 hours. I might be expanding it even more. So I'm going to create it as 100. So each bin is going to be of 100. So this is going roughly to create three different bins. Let's have a look on this. Instead of displaying it among the hours, I'm going to put it this way. So here you have three pens, people who are working less than 100, people who are working from 100 to 200, and people who are working more than 200 up to 300. So you have completed them or created them as different groups. The way I'm going to use this average monthly hours, I'm going to use it as colors. So it's going to look like this. So, but let me use the left as colors. So we have the consistency. Okay, interesting. So it seems that the people who are working 300 hours has completely left. 100% of the people who are working 300 hours has left. Yes, you can have a different perspective. You might get a different message if you are going to split this or to make it instead of having 100, if you make it 50. So it's going to be six different bands instead of three. Yes, it's going to give you more detailed aspect. It doesn't matter how you are going to do it, but as I mentioned, it's very important to uh, um, select a scale which is going to show you something that you can rely on. So as you can see, the maximum number of people who has left are people who are working more than 200 hours and people who are working less than 100 hours. Anyways, you can keep going and you can start creating other charts. I'm going to create one more chart, which is relating the leave state with the department. So I'm going to place the department in here, and still we are counting the number of people who are leaving. And let me include the promotion. Let me include the leave inside color. Yeah. Okay, so this is a Poplet chart. The size of the Popple is the number of employees. And these are the different departments. So you will find that the number of people who are being, let me remove the promotion. It is, yeah, okay. So it's showing you each group. So for example, each department is being presented by two different popples. The dark purple is showing you the people who has left, and the light purple is showing you the people who has stayed. So, for example, now you are comparing purple to purple from the technical. Here you are comparing purple to purple. This is the sales and the sales who has left. What I'm trying to say here is, as you can see, here, you are not trying to provide some details. You are trying just to give some clear individual messages. Once I look at this, the first thing my eye is going to be attracted to is two different things. The biggest bubble overall and the biggest dark bubble. And the biggest bubble overall is the sales, and the biggest dark bubble is the sales as well. So, as I mentioned, when you are trying to build the dashboard, you are not necessarily trying to display everything. Now I'm going to create, now I'm no longer adding a sheet here at this bottom. I'm adding a sheet. I'm not adding a sheet. Now I'm going to add a dashboard. So for the dashboard, I'm just dragging and dropping my elements. And while you are dragging and dropping the elements, try to note what's going to happen in here. For example, I'm going to show sheet number 2. And as you can see, because this part is highlighted, it means that it's going to split the whole span uh, by half. Now, the third one, if I'm going to do it this way, it means that it's going to split sheet 1 to a half. So it's going to be 20, 1/4, 1/4, 1/2. If I'm expanding it a little bit in here, it's showing part of sheet 1 and part of sheet 2. So it's going to be 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. If I'm putting it down here, it's going to split the sheet 1 into half. If I'm putting it this way, it's going to split sheet 2 to a half. What if I would like to have the complete or the full 50% among the whole span? I can do it this way. So it's going to be presented that way. And do not forget that we have a popular chart as well. I'm going to show it here. So here you will find there is a device preview. You can change the device preview to be on a larger screen, or you can do it as automatic, which is going to be fully sized. So this is how your final dashboard should look like. And I would like to present that so you will be able to see how does it actually, how can we explain this? Let me just change the size of the bubble of the pie chart. Okay. All right. So if I'm going to tell a story, or I'm going to show how this dashboard is telling a story, we might be saying that this is the amount of people that are in the company. This is the amount of people who are leaving. And then I'm going to continue telling the story of the people who has left. So I'm going to say that the maximum people who has left has been less paid. The maximum people who has left has been working more than 200 hours, and the most of people who has left has been from the department, which is the sales and the technical department. Other department didn't have this amount of leaving. The biggest or the best teams that might look like here, for example, it might be the support. Huge amount of people are there and only less people has left. Next can be, for example, the IT. Most of people are staying more than the people who has left. And this is how you can tell a coherent story. As you can see here, we have defined the color schema, which is the same among the whole graphs. And one good thing is you can use something as filters. So for example, I can highlight this. So it's going to show me only the people who are being paid less, and you can control the tooltips as well. So that was an example of how you can build a simple dashboard with number of elements and how you can keep it coherent and concise among your graph. Definitely, we still have lots of things to say and lots of um, ideas to be shared. However, for the sake of time, these are the main things that we wanted to highlight during our boot camp. So in the beginning, we started talking about the importance of the data and where this data would come from. And we started talking about the different ways of visualizing the data, the different approaches of thinking about how to visualize the data. And we have highlighted a couple of things. First, when you are about to take a decision, make sure that you are taking this decision based on facts, not based on your previous experience, because most likely what you are dealing with right now is most of the time it is different than what you have been using or dealing with before. Try to focus on what is actual, not what is logical. Try to let the data speak so you can um, get the best usage of the data because the data is already there. So make use of it whenever you are trying to build, uh, okay, the part of the bubbles. Okay, yeah, let me get back to this very quickly. Sure. Okay, so for the bubble chart or for any other chart, it was sheet 4. What we usually do is, so in the beginning, what I have done, I just did it this way. So I always, even on personal level, when I'm building a dashboard, I always start with columns. And then, so this column is simple. I'm using the department as column and the count of people as rows, and I'm using the leave state as color. What I have done next is I clicked on show me and I have converted this to bubbles. That's it. My pleasure. Okay, so let's get back to this. So we have been saying that it's very important to take the decision based on your actual state, not only based on what is logical. And it's very important that you imagine or you decide what you are going to plot before you plot it. It's very important to start thinking about the message that you are going to deliver from your chart. Using the tool is simple as long as you know what you are going to present. And then we started following a simple methodology in order to build good charts from the first time. First, answer this very simple question. What are you tracking? What is the output? So you start presenting this output as something that you are counting or average or maximum, and then you start relating what you are counting to other parameters. So, for example, you are counting the total number of employees based on the leave state. You are counting the total number of employees based on the department, and then from that, you will be able to build bar chart. And in some cases, you are converting this bar chart to stacked or to pie chart or to bubble chart based on the message that you are going to deliver. And as we have mentioned, the same exact definition, if you are presenting one department or the total amount of employees divided by the department and the leave state, you are having 20 different columns. You can put them next to each other. You can put them on top of each other. You can place them as bubbles. And trust me on that, each and every one is going to deliver a different story. And the story depends on the first impression. So every time you are looking at a graph or you are building a graph, ask yourself what would be the first impression that the people are getting from that graph.